welcome back to the podcast. I'm Brandon Bagg, and I'm sitting here with my very good friend, Mr. Paul Clark.
Cheers.
How are you?
Salud.
Salud. So
We're just sipping, right?
just sipping.
Just sipping.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's. I think it's good.
It's great.
I've been told it's good
Yeah.
by a higher authority than myself on mezcal.
Anyone really?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Paul, how you doing?
Good, man. Nice to chat with you.
How long have we known each other?
Oh, I would say at least 12 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
has it been that long?
Yeah.
Jesus,
Feels
Jesus.
that long, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy because Kevin, one of our bartenders,
Yeah.
told me the other day he'd been working there for 12 years, and I was like, that means I've been working here for about that long.
Yeah.
And that guilt, obviously.
Yeah. You weren't too much longer after that. I think I played there 2011 was the first time. So I would say maybe at least 10.
And was Groundup, did that start right away?
It was May of 2012.
2012.
So not long after. Yeah, coming up on 11 years. Yeah.
And that was that started as a tribute.
It did. Yeah, it was so I guess going back into it, JC Thompson, our buddy that did my job at Guilt before me, was the bass player in Randy Ponzio's band. And the first show that I did at Guilt was with Randy and JC. JC had brought Randy and myself to play with him there. That was in July of 2011. And then Randy passed away in November of 2011. And then after that, we kind of tried to think of a way that we could kind of keep things going in his name. So yeah, it started officially in May 2012.
And was the decision to donate the funds, the proceeds on Thursday nights to local charities, was that in memoriam of Randy?
Yeah. It all kind of came together in an interesting way. Randy had passed away on a Thursday. He had gone missing on a Tuesday. He passed away on a Thursday. We found out about it on very early on a Sunday morning, and the Thursday that he had passed, we were actually supposed to play with him at Guilt with his band, and then his backing band was also backed a good friend of his, David Morin, that you probably know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So David sang instead, and we were playing while Randy's friends and family were looking for him on the downtown East Side, which is where he was last seen. So with that, it was kind of like the Thursday nights became the night, because that was like the night that we were supposed to play with him, the night of the week. And then in all of the times when we were kind of going around the neighborhood, the downtown East Side, asking people in the community delicately, because it's a complex neighborhood, and you don't, one thing you don't want to do is just go out and say, my friend's missing, we don't know where my friend is, when you're talking to people that either might be hoping people are looking for them, or don't have any vested interest in a neighborhood of a lot of people that have a lot of challenges. So we found that, like, just being out there, the community, the residents, the people that we were chatting with were so accommodating and sympathetic to the issues that we had in trying to locate him. So that was in his honor, our way to give back to most specifically the downtown East Side. Charities that help out the people that were trying to help us find him. Mm-hmm. That was the kind of the idea behind it. So almost all of the nonprofits that we donate to through Groundup, are for the downtown East Side, and they're ones that are a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. I don't want to say renegade, but some are more kind of grassroots, boots on the ground. We look for ones that don't necessarily have the same, corporate donors that a lot of the bigger ones do. The bigger ones do great work. Like, you know, the Union Gospel Mission is one that comes to mind. Like they do really good work. But for our purposes, we just thought of ones that were a little bit under-recognized. So
Yeah. And over the course of the last, I guess it's been 10, 12 years that it's Groundup's been happening on every Thursday.
Yeah.
Do you know off the top of your head a rough dollar figure of how much the musicians that play on those nights? Because that's what's really cool about it. I think that needs to be, is that it's the musicians themselves that are donating on
exactly
on Thursday nights.
Exactly. So the you know, the way that we do things at Guilt&Co, where we you know, since COVID, we've been charging per set. And then of that money gets turned over to the band, with some going to, you know, show related expenses like sound and et cetera, et cetera. So we do a flat rate per musician and cap it at a certain level so that all of the net proceeds past that. So the musicians still, they get paid, but they play for a lot less than they would if we didn't do that. Like, and so that's why, you know, we never, you know, even take tax receipts for the donations, because they don't. Right. It'd be so hard to divvy up. You couldn't figure out how, you know, if you had, say, I don't know, 30 musicians in 1 month that were playing Groundups, you wouldn't know how to do that. And it doesn't technically come from the venue anyways. So, so it varies, you know, and it depends on, you know, well, I don't want to say unfortunately, but you still have to pay the musicians, right? So it's like what we can donate fluctuates day to day. But sorry, was the question how much overall, or how much
overall from the musicians?
Okay, I will say that different musicians, one will probably come to mind to you that has been playing Groundup since the beginning. Definitely just throws out a number every time he's on stage and says, yeah. And it's always wrong. Like, I love him, but I would, it's so funny. I'm like, oh shit, like, really don't say that. I would say, I haven't checked recently, but it's right now it's between 110 and 115,000. That's pretty cool. That's something that, because it, again, like I said, that's musicians. Yeah. Over the course, you know, and it's small, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, but that's, you know, no small change that's been thrown back into the community from people that are from this community, giving back in honor of this, you know, individual. Yeah. And so it's interesting because, I mean, myself and Tanya and JC started it before I was employed by the venue. Right. I believe Tanya was then at that point. Yeah. She was, right? She was there when I started. Yeah. Yeah. So JC and Tanya were employed there. I took over for JC doing the bookings 5 years ago. So in that 5 years of so what's that, 250, 260 Groundup nights that I've booked, not one musician has been like, that's not enough money. I'm not playing. Like, either word is you know, gotten out ahead of time. I think that maybe it has, or people. It's usually around the same people. But when I bring new musicians into it that haven't played it before, they've got an idea, a sense of what it's about, and nobody has been like, you know, I can't do that. I'm flexible with it too. For example, if somebody's booked to play a Groundup, and then, you know, they've got an opportunity that comes up that is maybe they can't turn down for career reasons or financial reasons or whatever. Of course, like, that's in general with Guilt&Co. That's what's great about the place, is that, you know, we're kind of, Groundup's no exception. Like, we're there for the musicians in the sense that, like, you have a place to play, but we'll work with you. We're not going to, you know, if you get a great tour or you get to go play Montreal Jazz Fest and you're booked here, like, nobody's going to, you're not going to get blacklisted. No, of course not. Yeah. So there's never been a time that anybody's said, I don't, that doesn't work for me, or, people are generally, and they get to kind of have an idea of where the money goes, and how it helps out. So,
and that night specifically has evolved quite a bit over the years that I've been there.
Yeah.
I think when I first started, however many years ago it was typically close to the same band every Thursday.
Yeah.
And there would be different vocalists. And it was like that for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And I think it was it after COVID that you started to switch that up a little bit?
It was quite a bit before that, actually. More or less. It was JC kind of started messing with that for reasons I totally support and follow, because it was originally supposed to be, and it was for quite a while. It was we went by the name of the Foundation, so it was like Randy's backing band, which was also Tanya's, David Morin's, Dutch's, and we would back different singers every night, and we would kind of rotate through, and a lot of them were people that were up and coming or didn't, we used it as an opportunity to give people stage time that maybe, singers that didn't have, have that opportunity. And the work was great. And, putting that show together every week wasn't the issue. It was more, JC was kind of looking at more from an audience perspective where, I don't know how else to put it, but it's like, if you came to a Groundup night one night and you saw someone like Dutch, who has been singing for over 70 years professionally, and then you came and saw somebody that had considerably less experience or was cutting their teeth a little bit, it just became a situation where, like, and that's what's good about the early shows that we do now. Back then we didn't do it. And you had to kind of keep the guests in mind, where it's like, if you had this I guess big variation in the quality of the show, for lack of a better term, that was a bit of an issue. So JC really set the pace for. I think he was really good at never thinking that you have to be involved in everything regardless. Like, it has to be good quality, right? Yeah. So he started, and he had that discussion with me even before, before I worked for the venue, because I was playing drums every night, and he's like, like, this could be better if we just started opening it up to different bands. There's a lot of R&B, well, not a lot, but there are more R&B, soul, fusion, jazz players in the city than just us, right? So So rather than it just being us and the quality kind of comes and goes, maybe we open it up so that it's always a great show, and then we put more work into developing those artists behind the scenes rather than on stage, so people aren't showing up and going, oh, okay, well, that was okay, so that's been the evolution went from it just being the Foundation to it being, okay, well, what was the type of music that Randy liked? What's some underrepresented genres in Vancouver, like, especially from the BIPOC community, that kind of stuff. Like, what's a night that, and that was really important to Randy too. Like, what's a night that we can, specifically feature that and make sure that that's like an anchor in the week, whether we're involved or not. So now we kind of just, it has evolved, and I feel like that's kind of like been my overall idea with the programming at Guilt, is like, don't dig your heels in, like, just let the place breathe, like, let it pay attention to what works and what doesn't work. And there's always going to be times where you go, oh shit, that, I don't know, but shouldn't have done that. But like, but let it happen. Like, let it live. It'll guide itself, and kind of work with it. So Groundup's kind of no different that way. Yeah.
You've been doing the programming. I think the term you told me you liked years ago was live booking coordinator.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, isn't it?
It's a mouthful. Yeah.
It's kind of dumb. But it's something about manager
or booker. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just because so many managers and bookers are just like people that you don't want to talk to.
Well, and then the other thing, like the main term seems to be talent buyer. Like, in this industry is talent buyer. And that doesn't sit well with me either. And we don't technically buy shows at Guild either, right? We're not paying, someone's not saying like, this is what it's going to cost for us to play. We're saying this is what we can pay you, but like, it's a whole different thing. So I've never known what to call it really.
Do you find that you interact with or see the music industry differently now than you did 6 years ago because of the fact that you've been booking artists for that time?
Yeah. In some ways, for sure. Like we're this weird little, like Guilt and Company's on an island as far as the music industry goes. People can't really figure it out. We've had like, do you remember the, oh man, it was the Skookum Fest. We did a satellite show for, I don't know if you remember this, but we had, some of the biggest booking agents in the country, and the guy that started Much Music was there, and everybody was like, what the hell is this place? Like, how is this even happening? Like, how do you have, a lineup around the building like this, and there's people from all generations and all corners of the world here. And so I feel like I wish that Guilt was a representation of the Canadian music industry. That would be great. Not that I would want everything to be like Guilt&Co, but people naturally gravitating towards coming to take in music. So I guess in some ways it's I'm a little bit oblivious actually to what it really is like in bigger markets or like, bigger business. But overall, as we have a lot of musicians that come and play there in side projects or their own projects that play at the highest level in the world.
Right.
So on the other hand, where I see it differently is that it really like demystifies those things that you think of when you're a kid or you're a teenager. You're like, holy shit, what would it be like to meet so-and-so? Or like, what would it be like to, it seems like it's such a different, it's probably the same with acting, right?
When turns out they're just a regular fuck.
Exactly. Exactly. They're like, and some of them fucking suck, but not many, many really. And it's always, like the people that are, seems like the most accomplished that are the most humble. But so I honestly I feel like I have the best job, for what I do in the whole country, because I know as a touring musician that there's not anywhere like it. And, I get the opportunity to take some chances as far as the programming, not too many, but, so I'm a little bit oblivious still as to how the bigger picture works as far as the music industry, but the windows that I have into it, it's just like, okay, this is still just a bunch of people trying to do whatever the hell it is that they love,
Do you find it difficult to book from the road when you're on tour?
Not quite. No, overall it's pretty good, and I have to say that's mostly because of the staff. The staff's, there's varying levels of objectivity, which is fair. And, you figure that out. And I think that people overall know that I'm not just making decisions based on my own musical taste. Right. So there's always people I can report back to. There's certain times where I want to make sure that like I'm near my phone, if it's just little things like there's someone that's trying to squeeze 10 of their friends on a guest list at 10 on a Saturday, and I can give them a slap on the wrist or something. But overall, it's pretty simple. I'm really lucky that way for sure. Yeah.
Do you ever get nervous when, say, the artists that you take a little bit of a chance on, you go out a little bit more of a limb?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
not nervous in the sense that like, you know, I think I'm immediately going to get fired, but, you know, I expect a lot out of myself as a musician, and I expect a lot, I expect a lot out of myself, but also I want to maintain a high quality for the room. But then there's also the matter of, you know, everybody has to start somewhere, and we don't want to just be a place that's just, you know, not giving. I have no time for like the old school, like, you know, you have to overperform in order to even get an opportunity. You know, there's places where that fits. Like, you know, I'm not going to put anybody on stage on a Friday night for 3 sets that's never done that. You know, they have to work their way up to it. But there are times where I'm, you know, the most nervous I get are people that we've had for a long time in certain projects, and then you know,
give them a side project.
Yeah. And they're like,
you're singing? You're singing.
Yeah.
I've never seen you do that.
Yeah. And then, you know,
but it's amazing when they blow you out of the water.
Yeah.
When you're like, holy fuck, where were you keeping that?
Exactly. And those are the nights where you'll probably notice I'm like, because we have a management WhatsApp group where those nights are like 3 minutes after downbeat, I'll be like, how's the fucking show? Like immediately, I'm like, is everything okay? And they're like, you know, haven't started yet. I'm like, all right, let me know.
Boy, why the fuck haven't they started yet?
Just pacing in my apartment or whatever. But there's nothing like the feeling of, you know, again, being on an island in Guilt&Co, you're kind of like, you think you got a good idea of like who the players are in the city, and you get to know a lot of people. But then when there's either you know, younger or like less experienced people, or sometimes even to me even kind of like better to have like the older, like very experienced, you know, people that just email you.
Like Cannery Row?
Yeah, they email you.
One of the best shows, my favorite shows.
Yeah, and you're like, well, and then you have to check yourself, because you're like, well, I've been playing professionally for 10 years in the city, and I don't know I've never heard of so-and-so or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, okay, hold on. You start to dig and scratch, and like, okay, well, these people have been playing for 50 years professionally, like, or whatever it is. And you go, shit, man, like, I don't know a fucking thing, like, at all. So those are the times, like you said, when you get surprised, when it's yeah. And everybody's mostly so humble in the city, I find, musically, that, you know, you don't even, a lot of the I hate to say older, but yeah, like older players that play there, you know, even if you asked who they've played with, they'd never tell you.
Right.
You know, they don't give a shit. They're there that night for that show, you know? So, yeah.
Do you ever find, like you're doing a bit of a juggling act between your career as a drummer and booking, you know, the artist? Do you ever find like you need to make time to pursue your own career as a musician? You know, with the different acts that you drum with, and where's the do you struggle focusing your passion? I guess is the question.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier than when I used to run restaurants part-time and drum part-time. That was, you know, for the simple, even just like something as simple as, you know, I can work if I'm on the road for Guilt&Co, and earn my salary while I'm doing that. Whereas if I was bartending or managing a restaurant or whatever, then if I'm gone, like it's not happening.
You mean you don't miss bartending?
Bartending I do sometimes, quite a bit, but I think I got it down to a bit of a rhythm now, as far as like splitting the time. It was a bit of an adjustment getting a job that was mostly computer work, because like it took me a really long time to not realize that I didn't have to answer every email right away.
Right.
Stuff like that was kind of, I could kind of get a little bit obsessive about, but now, most people that are professional instrumentalists in Vancouver or in Canada, a lot of it, the touring is seasonal.
Yeah, totally.
And
festivals and stuff.
Exactly. And also I don't know. I've noticed this a lot, especially since COVID, which obviously hasn't been that long since kind of touring opened up again, but it just doesn't really make much sense to tour at all. Like, so there's a very, very few bands in general that are going out for a month or 2 months or whatever. It's usually shorter trips or festivals or whatever, because just the amount of, you see what ticket prices are like for concerts these days, and gas, et cetera, et cetera. So there actually hasn't been a time where, since I've done the job, that I've been gone for longer than like 2 weeks straight or 3 weeks straight.
Right.
The last few summers have been, or like last summer and before COVID I was gone every week, but I would be home 2 or 3 days so I could come and, get caught up. I'd be working while I was gone, but I'd get caught up and stuff. So the rhythm's pretty good. If it ever came to the point where if there was an opportunity for me to tour with an artist for a long period of time, but I just don't really see many people doing that anymore. Yeah. It's crazy the amount of money that costs to do.
Yeah, it's not surprising. Yeah. But you play with a lot of different acts.
Yeah.
What's it like keeping all of that in your brain?
I don't know if I do. It's kind of like, I'm sure kind of like with acting, you just get your own systems for how you
catalog and remember.
For those of you that don't know, Brandon is a great actor, so that's why I keep saying this. But yeah,
Paul's a shit drummer, guys.
Terrible. That's why I have the time to do this.
Clearly, I'm not acting right now.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Neither of us are doing what we love. You kind of just get eventually. If I was playing with as many people right now, as many people as I do right now, 5 or 10 years ago, it just wouldn't be possible. First of all, I wasn't good enough,
right?
But also just getting your systems down to kind of figure it out. And I'm the type of musician that like I can read music, but I really like to be able to sit with stuff. So I'll kind of front load it, and if there's an artist I haven't worked with before, I'll just put a lot of time into it before the first rehearsal. But I also don't take anything that I mostly don't take anything that I'm not comfortable with. Like I would never take a metal gig. Like I have nothing but respect for it, but I would never take a swing, like a bop gig, like as a jazz drummer.
Yeah.
I would probably I always say like I could get 8 bars into a swing tune and get found out. Like I wouldn't know what the fuck.
I'm an imposter.
Oh man. And so with the stuff that I mostly play, whether it's like, R&B, which is the newest to me, R&B and like fusion jazz is the newest to me. So I still do feel like I'm a bit of an imposter there. I'm getting there with that stuff, but country, blues, rock, that kind of stuff. I've kind of got the system.
Is that more well your background too? Like, I mean, you're a Chilliwack boy. You grew up listening to a lot of country blues. I mean, I've heard you come in when I'm working during the day and comment on on any number of musicians that I've got. You're like, oh, Merle Haggard, that's cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of crossover. You and I.
Yeah. What do you feel like your biggest background or biggest early influences are for music and drumming specifically?
Yeah. Well, the first overall exposure I had to music is my grandpa is a musician. He's still kicking. And he was a dairy farmer in Chilliwack. And at that, when he was in his late teens, early 20s, the town didn't even have any bars or venues or anything. So they just had dances and like country halls. And there was like 2 or 3 country bands, and he had one of them. And they would play instrumental covers of, George Jones tunes and Hank Williams tunes. And they all learned them by ear. And the music just existed for dancing, and the dances were mostly like there was like no alcohol. So I don't think they were that fun in general. Like I don't know what they did.
I know what they did.
Yeah.
They clearly weren't breaking anything.
Yeah. But they, that was the social thing that they did is they would, he had his band that he started in like 48 or something. So he started when he was like 16, and they're still technically sort of a band. Everyone's dead except for him, the fiddle player, and I'm the drummer because drummer.
You're the drummer in your grandpa's band?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We don't play too much anymore, but I've been the last. I should say the drummer didn't die. He just moved to Mexico. So, which is like a pretty damn good idea. Stuck playing these country. No.
Yeah.
So that was my first exposure to it, and actually, grew up going to these dances as a kid because he was still playing them in a hall that, like, it's so funny. Like they built the hall because there was all these farmers are just like, well, shit, we need somewhere to hang out and have dances. So they built it. My parents got married there. My brother got married there. But these dances would still happen when I was a kid. And Bonnie Northgraves grew up going to them.
Right. Yeah.
Bria Skonberg as well, who's like a multi-Juno and I think maybe a Grammy nominee at least. Mm-hmm. She's a New York trumpet player. We grew up going to these dances together. So that was the first exposure. So country was definitely, as far as live music goes, was the first one for me. And then, and rock, of course, but like, then it was pretty much all punk rock through my teens and early 20s.
Yeah.
And
like 80s punk rock, like Dead Kennedys.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Casualties and into the 90s stuff like Suicide Machines, some of the older hardcore stuff like Black Flag. Yeah. And I played, that's pretty much all I really played for a long time. And then much like, it's funny, there's such a cliche about country music being for like retired punk rockers. It's true. Like
yeah. I've met a lot of old punk rockers doing country stuff.
The ones that because there's a lot of similarities in the music too.
I'm blanking. Mike
Moroniak?
No, Mike. Is that his name? The guy who?
Mike Young.
Like
yeah, totally. Of Mother. Yeah, exactly. We did a bunch of country gigs. Flavio Cirillo is a great example. Played in some great punk bands. He played in Hail the Villain forever, and he's like doing all the big, like he's like the musical director for the CCMAs, you know, like. But then also all of that, like all of the more East Van country scene, or like the more kind of roots country scenes that are, or the rockabilly country scenes, are all like Joseph Lubinsky Mast is another guy who's just grew up playing punk. There's a lot of the people that cut their teeth in those scenes that kept going with music. Like you can't really make a living playing punk rock because it goes against it. You're like, you know.
I mean, I've been to a lot of punk shows, so you can't make money playing.
No, you can. And I think like Fugazi is, you know, I don't know if they're still holding by the $5 show rule, but but they were like, it's just like, so if you want to move,
Like when they were at their height, they were doing $5 a
yeah,
show?
yeah,
I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
crazy.
And they would refuse to charge more. And so people that are instrumentalists that kind of cut their teeth in that scene that wanted to keep going, a lot of them ended up, playing in country that various genres of country or all of them. And I find that, there's different levels of intensity, obviously, between country and punk rock in a lot of ways. But the idea to me of having like dialed in simple messages in your songs that are like highly emotive, like we all know when country music is being fucking faked, and there's nothing worse except for when punk music is being faked. So it's like, it's easily and it's easy to interpret. I find it's like, and to me, the idea of having like trim the fat on the songs, like perform it really, really well with the right energy. Like I find like that's kind of where they kind of cross over a lot. So yeah, and so that's kind of, I did find, I mean, shit, there might be like bandmates of mine in country bands that could say I'm full of shit, but when I did come back into it, and like a lot of people do, they come back to country music, they come back to the music that they grew up with. Right. When you go through that, the shithead phase of like, I don't want to, when you're,
I don't want to listen to my parents listening to you.
My parents listening, then all of a sudden the switch flips and you go, shit, like that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, my parents were actually cool before they had me. Wait a minute, I ruined them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I took it out on them for having a good taste in music. When you come back to it, it was when I started playing a lot of that music or getting hired for that, I find that it did come pretty naturally because it was pretty hard ingrained in me. Like just in terms of like the approach to the music as far as country goes and that kind of stuff. And growing up watching my grandpa, like he didn't have him and his band didn't have like the craziest by any means, like the musical vocabulary, because they learned everything, by the record, and maybe there's a key change in the tune or whatever, but the tempo was always perfect because the people were dancing, and they would always watch the dancers, and if things got too fast or too slow, so like that was something that was always like pretty evident about it, that people think that stuff like country or rockabilly it's just easy because it's repetitious, but as far as drums go, there's no fucking way. Like,
and they're all like I the similarities you draw between country and punk in the stylings of them. Mm-hmm. I've always found punk to be so much like, if you take any Misfits song and you like slow it a bit down, take out all the distortion, take out Danzig and put in one of the Wilson brothers, it just sounds like the Beach Boys had a bad fucking day. Yeah. And it's so the musically they're so fucking similar.
Exactly.
And then you think about where, artists like the Beach Boys or other, oldies tunes of the day, that oldies doo-wop style, was very, in terms of its roots, its evolution, they had a common ancestry in, the South, in when sort of blues and country and bluegrass split off from each other, and then spidered out into these other things. And then you have bluegrass and country coming over here, and then you have blues turning into rock and into metal over here, and then they're all so interconnected in sort of the roots of Americana, like they're
just varying degrees of being stolen from. From Africa. Like,
how else could we steal from black people?
Yeah, like fuck, man. Yeah, it's true. It's just I think that people just don't ever want to be lied to in music or at all, and I know that stuff like pop country gets a bad rap, and a lot of it is just I personally can't even handle listening to it. But the other side of it to me is that it's the biggest machine in the music industry. Like it is
massive. Yeah.
It is the biggest. And so is it really, this is a question, it's not even an opinion, but is it really musically, like if you took the most overdone, cheesy, like just overproduced pop country, the garbage, and put it beside the same in any other genre, like is it that much worse pound for pound, or is it just that we're inundated with it that much more because it's everywhere? Like it's huge. It's like the NASCAR of music, and that's who they're marketing it to. It's just like, and I don't really have any part in that. Those aren't the type of artists that I seek out to hopefully work with, but I have, and it's always been great and it's been enjoyable. And you're always playing with people that are playing at a really high level, regardless of like how, regardless of the intention behind the music, if it's actually, from the heart, or if it's intended to be marketed and consumed, and there's a place for all of that, of course, but it's just, I like, do you remember when we were in high school and the punk bands, and you're just like, give me a fucking break. Like,
I grew up in the suburbs, man. I remember the punk bands.
So did I. Like, it's just,
we're
like,
punk. Really? How?
No.
How?
Yeah. There's nothing,
Your parents bought you $400 jeans and you cut holes in them.
Exactly.
That's a $50 patch.
You're
that
fake
you bought at the
crying.
rock shop.
Yeah, exactly. So
which I was totally guilty of at 15, like 100%.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I didn't have it nearly as bad as a lot of people. I don't know what my fucking problem was, but I love the music, and it was just like, you connect with just the intensity of it, the stuff that mattered. Like I still love Rancid, you know, like stuff like that, where you're like, that's about I didn't go too far into the skate punk stuff, but even like early Green Day stuff, where it's just literally just three young dudes just crushing it, like performing so well at such a young age. And it's just like, that was, there wasn't maybe nearly as much angst or like anger or aggression in that music, but it was honest.
Yeah.
Back then, at least.
Yeah. And I think it's easy for people in our generation to have a soft spot for Green Day.
Yeah.
Cause I love their early shit, and it's so, it is what it is. But
yeah. There's a great, I was listening to a podcast not long ago with, probably my favorite recording engineer in the city, Jesse Gander. I first recorded with him. I was 17, I think. He was the lead singer of DBS. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah, I remember DBS.
Yeah. And we're still really good friends. And that they started that band when they were like 15 or something. And I didn't really get into DBS too much, but a lot of his later bands I did. And in the podcast, he was talking about Dookie, actually. And he's like, if you put that record on objectively, fan or not, which is tough for me to say because I am a fan, and you listen to the performances and the mixing of it, everything about how that record sounds and the song quality, it still stands. It still stands. Yeah. Like if you put it on, and I think they were maybe 20 or maybe 21 when they did that. They hammered it out live off the floor.
Was their first or second?
It was actually their third full length.
It was their third. Okay.
Yeah. There were, I could be wrong, but there were at least two before that. And there's nothing cooler than that to me than just like people just hammering out these songs, concise.
Also the beauty of a perfect record.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I feel is missing in music today.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Is that appreciation? They might still be getting made, but there's not an appreciation for an album anymore.
Yeah.
That there was when we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
There was for the 20, 30 years before that. I think the early stages of the music industry, it was all about the single.
Yeah.
And you get the Billboard charts and the single because it was radio. That was the way that music was most consumed by the masses, was through radio. And then when people actually started, with artists like the Beatles, I think probably were there in a big way in the '60s when their albums were actually, wasn't just their singles were selling, were going triple platinum, but their albums were as well. And of course, there's, I'm not a music scholar. There's probably tons of other artists out there were doing it as well. But then we look back on the albums of the late '60s and '70s, like, Sabbath and Zeppelin, and people remember 2 and 4 and Masters of Reality and, Tapestry and all these different albums from that era, Blonde on Blonde. We remember the albums. And I think that stayed strong into the mid to late '90s. People really had that appreciation for albums. And now I look back on albums that I really like from the 2010s and, aughts, right? Like Black Keys early stuff.
Yeah. And, oh man, that's so good.
Kings of Leon's first three albums. They were really, really solid start to finish albums. And I feel like that's kind of with the advent of streaming and the way that we consume music now, is we don't have albums like Dookie anymore that we can put on and say start to finish, pound for pound. Those songs are great. They're exactly what they're supposed to be, and they're performed exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's produced at the exact right level. It's just, we're like, let's get the single out again. We've almost come full circle back to like the 45s now. It's all about like getting out the single, because we don't consume music in the same way.
Yeah. Man. I wonder, I was thinking that exact thing, and I wonder if it's going to come back around. And I think it probably will at some point, because everything kind of seems to.
Everything comes full circle.
Yeah. And the last record that kind of really, there's probably a lot. And to be honest, I'm definitely guilty of using Spotify like a lot of people.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
for
I don't
sure.
even remember the last time I listened to an album start to finish.
I don't either. Well, I actually do, but that I remember.
Actually, that's not true. I've recently listened to 5 Huxley Workman albums start to finish.
Oh yeah,
because he's coming to play at Guilt.
Just cataloging all the tunes.
Excited.
Totally.
Reliving my teens.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there was I think it was 2017. I can't remember the name of the record, but Queens of the Stone Age put out a record that I think is amazing and is recorded in a pretty interesting way. Like they did it to tape and did a lot of kind of interesting techniques with the drumming that I won't get into. But that was the last time that I remember checking out a whole record. And it was admittedly because I read an interview with the drummer, and he was saying like, we actually intentionally planned this as you traditionally would a record in decades prior, which would be, maybe there's 12 songs on it, and you recorded 40 or 30 or whatever it is, and how great would it be to have that budget, to be able to even do that like they do. But that just stands out because it had been a while before that I had like listened to a whole record that it was almost weird to think that I had to be told that they intentionally did that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was
100%.
like, that's what he had said. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, I'll check it out. Whereas that's what always just used to happen. Like every record was intentionally made. The song order was kind of planned. The singles were planned. All of those things were kind of figured out ahead of time. And you'd have your the lyrics. I remember when I got Dookie, which is the first tape, like most people are our age.
You had it on tape?
Yeah. Most people our age are like, so many people are like, that's the first record I ever bought. If you're like 36 to 38 and grew up suburban pasty white kid in BC like I did.
My first record was Blues Traveler 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The one with Runaround on it.
Wow. Okay. That's 90s.
It was 1994, I think. I was 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
my aunt and uncle. My uncle was. I remember him being super old, but I think he was a college student at the time. So he was really.
Where were you living there then?
I was in Vegas at the time.
Yeah.
But he was into like, my aunt and uncle were into like Blues Traveler and Spin Doctors and stuff. So they got me into that. And it was like, it was stuff that my mom would let me buy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't allowed to bring Green Day or Nirvana or like, I think Metallica, the Black Album came around the same time. All that, like my older brother was listening to. So I had access to it. But I was, mom's sweet little boy. I can't bring that in the house.
Dude.
It's going to turn into a devil worshiper.
When I was in grade 5 and I was grade 4 or 5, obsessed with Green Day, my grandma bought me a Green Day shirt that had a cartoon kid pissing on a flower.
Yeah.
And she just knew I liked the band. She didn't seem to care that was on it. Gives it to me. My mom's like, there's no way you're wearing that ever, like at all. And I just like kicked up a fuss about it. And she's like, if you want to wear it, like I'm getting the shirt doctored so that this kid isn't like pissing on the flower. And I went for it. And all that happened is I got made fun of at school because my shirt had like a whited out, like yellow stream of piss that everyone could tell. Like it was just like the same thing where she's just like, absolutely not. No. Like, you're not doing that. Yeah. Like, I was allowed to listen to the music, and maybe, they were cool about that. But yeah, I remember, like, the lyrics and like, listening along and watching, like, the word fuck.
Waiting for it.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh,
they're going to say it. They're going to say it. And then you're like, it says it, and you're, like, 10, and you're like, holy shit.
I remember, do you remember Smash?
Mm-hmm. That was my second tape.
Yeah, I think Smash to me is Smash to the 90s is what Appetite for Destruction was to the 80s.
Yeah.
It's like everyone with a record collection or CD collection had one of those two albums.
Yeah.
I had both of them. But I remember when Bad Habit.
Yeah.
Bad Habit. And just waiting. I still know the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
I still know the whole thing.
Yeah.
And just you'd sit there in the car, you're like, we had like the one parent on the block that was cool and like let you put on music that was swearing it into the car.
This is so crazy.
And every time that stupid dumb shit that line came up, it was just like so happy.
Yeah.
This little kid with your mind being blown. They're swearing so much.
And that you're in a car with an adult while it's happening. And the adult's cool about it.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, I remember that. My friend Tyler Ferguson's dad was the guy, that was like, yeah, okay, you guys can listen to this here, man. Don't worry about it.
It's funny you talk about bringing the lyrics home because I remember starting, 10, 12 years old when I was first getting into to music up until I left high school, and they just you had to get a job and you didn't have time to do it, and you started doing different things. But I still every once in a while just do it, not with the lyric sheet. But I remember you go to the record store, you'd have like a gift certificate, right? You get like a gift certificate for HMV or Virgin or something for like $60. And at the time, that would give you anywhere from like 3 to 6 CDs, depending on how old they were.
Maybe throw in a poster there, Kurt Cobain poster or something. Yeah.
And then I remember you'd get home with like your stack of CDs that you just got, and sitting there and in my bedroom, like listening to all of them with the lyric sheets.
Yeah. Or when you'd rip off that Columbia House or whatever it is, did you ever do that?
Oh,
you might have been in the States actually.
My brother did that.
Yeah,
the Columbia House.
So stupid.
And he got hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands, maybe upwards of 1,000 worth of CDs, because they would like give you, because there was a bunch of them. There wasn't just one. There was like 5 or 6 of those things.
There was CDHQ was one.
I don't even remember their pay structure, but he just kept ripping them off, and he just kept getting boxes of CDs mailed to the house. And they eventually, I think at one point, my dad actually talked to one of them, and they're like, "Well, you have to make your son pay us back." And I'm like, You can make him pay you back.
Yeah, he's
I'm
14.
I'm not gonna make him pay you back.
Yeah.
You're the idiot who let a 14-year-old order a bunch of free CDs off you.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with me. I don't know what your policies are, but how you didn't screen the fact that this was a fucking child is not my problem.
My experience was the exact same. Although I only ripped off one of it was like you get 12 and then you had to pay, buy X amount in a year or whatever. And I just got the free ones and ignored it. And after, they're mailing me and stuff. And after a while, I remember like being all proud of myself because I'm like, yeah, they finally left me alone. And my mom's like, no, they didn't. I called them and told them that you're a teenager and to stop bothering you. And I was just like, damn it.
My mom bailed me out.
Yeah.
I thought I scammed the system and was cool.
I thought I won. Damn it. Thanks, Mom. So,
I wanted to ask you about, should we talk about the things that we're not supposed to talk about?
Ooh.
Or that we shouldn't talk about?
Let's go.
I want to talk about what it's like for you as someone who's a booker.
Okay.
I want to make you talk about
Okay.
what it's like.
It's going to be good.
When you get people, and I'm going to say this as kindly as possible. Mm-hmm. We're going to use as many innuendos as we feel like we get away with.
Okay.
That you really don't want to book.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're here and they should be here.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically the ones that are here and they think they're here.
Hey, man.
What's your approach to that?
That is, you just nailed it. It's, my favorite part of the job is giving opportunities to people that I always just say, I equate it to levels of experience. Like, rather than saying like somebody's no good or whatever, or it's just like somebody that's less experienced than others. My favorite part is giving opportunities to people that don't have much experience, that are really, really hungry and motivated to improve, get better, and watch them do that. Guilt&Co I could approach it as the place that is only reserved for, the most high caliber musicians and vocalists in the city. But that doesn't help to foster, a community of growth and give opportunities to younger or just less experienced players. And B, just because you're fucking good doesn't mean that your show's good, Right. There's a lot of really, really, really accomplished, experienced people in the city, like any other area, that don't offer what it is that we want to offer our guests. So that one's tough sometimes because there's a lot of people that I have to say thanks, but no thanks to, because what they do is great and they're really good at what they do, but it's not what we're trying to offer. Or a lot of the big machine, like corporate cover band businesses in the city, the product that they offer is outstanding. Like, they are some of the best musicians in the city, performing at a really high quality. But there's a lot of other places that you can go and see that show in the city, casinos, other venues, like lots of places where that can happen. So I don't want to do that, because every time a big entity like that plays at Guilt, that takes opportunity away from underrepresented musicians, right, which usually come from the BIPOC community, right? And that's something that we really try to focus with is to represent and do our best to give a home to all people, you know? So some people that are really, really experienced or have a lot of, years of experience in the business, they don't understand that sometimes. Most of them do, like a lot of them do, but it's hard to explain to somebody that there's nothing wrong with your show, but it just doesn't work for us. And that's mostly a problem because Guilt is kind of one of a, well, no, I don't want to say one of a kind, but there's not many places to play in Vancouver. So if there was more places, it would sting less, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, so other than that, people that reach out a lot that have little to no experience or need a lot of development, I will say if it's just not at all possible, like my go-to answer is I've reviewed everything that you've sent and I really appreciate you taking the time to reach out, but I don't have anything to offer you. If that changes, I'll let you know. Mm-hmm. And is kind of a read between the lines. Like that's like you need to see what I'm saying here. Like, because I'm not saying don't do this anymore. I'm not saying stop trying. I would never say anything like that. Like keep going, but like I always keep my eye on people. Yeah. And then from there, it's like if there's people that are just about like, if I'm like, man, like just a little bit more time or whatever, I'll say like, I don't have anything to offer you right now, but keep me informed like as the band develops. When you have more live, maybe
more footage.
When you have more footage, send it to me. Maybe Guilt&Co isn't going to be the place you play your first show, but when you play your first few shows, show me what, and that's what I love because people will actually do that. Like, they'll reach out 6 months later and be like, hey, here's where we're at now. And I'll say, yeah, fuck yeah, of course. Like, you want, it's going to be an early show, but we're going to pay you something and your friends can come and we'll start here. But like, so I want to be able to try to give opportunities to people that are actually motivated to improve and learn. And giving, I don't think that giving people opportunities when they're not ready for them is something that is helpful in general.
Yeah, totally.
I remember
it's almost unfair.
It's unfair. And I remember
you're setting them up for failure.
Exactly. And you're probably giving them a little bit of like misleading subliminal information about what to expect. I remember missing out on opportunities as a young drummer going, why am I not playing the Commodore? Why am I not doing this? And this person is. And looking back, I'm like, fuck, if I was given that opportunity, I would crumble if I played in front of 1,000 people, like, or whatever, even though I'd been doing it for so many years. So when people when artists of any age are showing that they're actually working hard at it, I'm down no matter what.
Yeah.
Unless it's just like, okay, did you just start, or it's where are you at in it? I can't work with people that are unaware of or clearly don't think that I shouldn't say I can't work. I struggle to work with people that think highly of themselves. That's not a problem, but don't understand that like they're not bringing something that people are really going to swallow up. I've had this conversation with some people that have reached out that are like, well, what are you talking about? What's the problem? I'm like, I do not need another like middle-aged white woman singing Aretha Franklin covers. Like, there's nothing wrong with, well, it's like, it doesn't sound bad, but I just don't believe you. Like, I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
And if I don't believe it, like, I want to present to the people that come to Guilt&Co a believable experience. And if you're not, especially when it comes to like music that's rooted in,
you don't want to see a white a white boomer singing
No,
fucking respect.
unless you really, really fucking
unless
destroy
you're at karaoke.
it. Yeah, or if you like really destroy it, because like especially music that's like rooted in has African roots, African culture, like everything does. It's just like you have to, it can't. It's just got to be believable, and it has nothing to do with. I mean, shit. I am very honored and lucky to play a lot of music that's rooted in African culture and born by people of African descent. But so I'm not saying that. I mean, if there's anything wrong with that, I'm fucking guilty. But
yeah. But it's that combination, like you said, it's that combination of being being really high, have a really high opinion of yourself, but also being unaware.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, everyone can name 1,000, no, maybe not 1,000, but everyone can name musicians off the top of their head that are really good at what they do, and they fucking know it. And it's like, you can take a little bit of the sugar with the salt at that point. Mm-hmm. But when it's, I get what you mean. When they're like, okay, you're good, but you're here. This is how good you are. This is the level.
Yeah.
But you're acting like you're here.
Yeah.
You're acting. You got like Beyonce level attitude. Yeah. I don't even know. So not bad mouthing Beyonce. I don't know if she's got attitude, but like attitude like you think you're Beyonce.
I hope she does, man.
I mean, yeah.
Fuck. Like she's earned it.
She's earned it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. No, I mean, like Kate Young's a perfect example. She not too long ago. I think it was even during COVID. So within the last 2.5 years or so, I think, it's Marley Collins is like, hey, I've got this, this.
I thought she played her first early show last year.
That you might be right about.
I'm pretty sure I just had her on. I'm pretty sure she played her first Guilt early show in 2022, beginning of 2022.
Yeah, and Marley was like, I think she was an ex.
She's great. Her single just came out. Her newest single.
Yeah. And seeing, like, of course, she probably, I don't want to speak for her, but she might have, when she first reached out to me, wanted to have played a Friday or Saturday late show for sure. I mean, who wouldn't, right? But so quickly, it was just like early show, on a weekday, early show on a weekend, late show on a weekday, and then just crushes it right away.
And then she recently played a Saturday night.
Exactly. And that's where she's going to be now. That's where she's going to, for us, and you can see her tracking, like she's going for it, and she's so great. And, she's got a perfect balance of like, she seems to me like she's such a hard worker. And I'm like, why the fuck would I not like work with people like that, or like Day, like Empress, or oh my god, I might screw this up. Asya, Asaya. Shit, man.
Yeah,
I live behind the emails, so I feel so bad. I haven't even like met her.
She's a fantastic performer.
But man, like
she did a Guilt by Association video as well.
Like these are the people that I just think about it like every time that I make room for somebody that's pretty good, or like good but not really, I'm like, I want to save room for people that are working like that, and put them in the same room as people like the Darren Parises and the Dom Pembertons and like Crystal Dos Santos, and people that have been doing it for that much longer, and just see that, like, you've been at Guilt for long enough that to me it's so cool in the last 2 years, even especially to see
all the new young people coming through,
and they're really great people. Yeah, and they're such great people. They're hard workers.
We gave them a shout out yesterday, but I'm gonna do it again. Well, yesterday, I guess last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. It was a previous episode.
Yeah,
Alvin Brendan we were talking about.
Yeah, man.
Who I need to get on the show. He popped up like around COVID, like during COVID.
Yeah,
and I think I called him my favorite musical slut right now, because he just fucking plays with everybody.
Yeah,
but every person that you just mentioned, Crystal, Darren, Don, Kate, Alvin, all those people, Asaya, I know them all in varying degrees of knowingness. It's my new word. But something that they all have in common is their ambition and their talent is coupled with grace and humility.
Exactly.
And that's something that is worth its weight in gold in this business, in how I interact with the artists, specifically as someone running the venue. Is humongous for me, because I've seen people come through with varying degrees of talent, and it's so exciting when you see to meet new people, whether or not they're young or old, but to see the last 2 years that influx of younger talent coming in, and I say younger, like they're young, they're younger than we are. But then, like you said, seeing them paired with Darren Paris's and the Don Pembertons, and watching them be able to interact with them, and seeing the community grow in that way of this, the way music transcends generations, and it transcends egos, it transcends genres. It's a neat thing, and I think it's something that really is cool about what happens at Guilt&Co.
Exactly. Yeah,
because it's multi-generational in a very cool way.
Yeah, and it's that, to me, goes back to the idea of, like, you have to let the room breathe and let it live the way it does, and that's not just on me and the music that I pick. It's you and how you run it as well. It's like you can't clamp down on it. Like, if it just became, and like if you're like, this is only going to be, the Paul Clark and the Darren Paris and the Max Sapers, whatever, like people that have been playing there for so long. If you do that, there's no motivation for people to, it's going to get old. No offense to Max and Darren. Darren has like 90 bands, so not him, but also you just have to, it has to provide something for the community in general. And that's the rewarding thing about it. It's like you're giving an opportunity to be like, I can't remember who it was I was talking about this. It was Max, actually. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, he hears about people that, young people, they're like, oh man, I would love to play at Guilt&Co. Like, fuck, I would, like, that's crazy. Like, that's the place. Like, it's a small town. The world's a small town. The music industry is a small town. And I'm glad that, I'm really, really glad when I see people that are, I haven't been at this professionally for very long. It's been 12 years for me, but I'm 37, and the people that we say that are younger are 20 to 25, maybe a little bit older than that. So quite a bit younger than me, but I'm glad that message seems to mostly be ringing true, at least with the people that we interact with and the people that come through, because like, one of my mentors, really, like, Flavio, and he's been in there quite a bit. It's been a while, but remember one time, like, we were hanging out, and he's probably one of, if not the busiest studio and live drummers in Vancouver. And he said, all it is people just want to see those around them do well, and be surrounded by good people. And that, to play professionally, you have to play at a really high level consistently. That's true. But the idea of, like, once you get to that level that you have to be the best matters so much less than how you interact with people, how you represent the band that you're in when you get to a venue, how you are in the van or the tour bus or whatever. Because, if you're touring with a band, the performance is only about an hour of a day, sometimes just an hour of a 2 or 3 day trip. That's it. So who gives a shit if, like at a certain level, there's a kind of a ceiling. And this isn't coming from a guy that's surpasses the ceiling of ability. I know, like, I'm realistic about my own abilities in that, but it's like seeing the instrumentalists or vocalists that we work with that are that age, if those are the things that I feel are going to keep them in the long run in this business is the humility and the respect and that kind of stuff. And that rings true for everything, but it's like, it's a people business. It really is. It is a people business, or else you might as well just play by yourself, and some people do.
Yeah.
Some people do. But
I think, talking about humility again, but like you can be good and know you're good and still be humble. And that's the thing. First name that came to mind. One of my favorite players that comes through Guilt, Sean Varro.
God damn.
Just one of the coolest people that I've only met him in passing a few times, just through Guilt. But he's confident. He knows what his show is. He knows. But he's so humble and so respectful and so sweet to the staff. Just such a great human being.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of players that emulate that in Vancouver in the music scene. And I think what's really neat about the community that's been fostered through, largely through yourself with the booking and the culture at Guilt&Co and the musicians that play there is the esteem that's valued. That level of character is so, it's respected, that it breeds. That level of mutual respect is something that's contagious. Yeah. So the more people do it, the more people do it. If that makes sense.
Well, exactly. And you said it yourself. It's like the talent and ability is really important. And there are so many drummers in the city that possess, and I mean this sincerely, I possess that to a degree that I could never imagine. And I tried my best, it's everybody has their days, but I try my best to personally to the opportunities that I've been lucky to have as a musician, I think are because I want to be a part of a team in that way. And I'm open to constructive criticism and all of those things. There's always going to be somebody better, stronger, et cetera, whatever that is in anything. So, you take a guy like Sean Varro. Sean is actually one of the best guitar players in the world. He is. Yeah. And he just happens to luckily live in Vancouver, and he happens to luckily like to play at Guilt&Co. That's it. Like, it doesn't, that's how we know Sean. But it's the same for him. It's like, he's, his playing speaks for itself, but he doesn't take for granted the fact that he still has to treat people with respect. And, Vancouver is interesting because it is a small scene as far as musicians go. It's not a Toronto or a Montreal, and which are crazy music cities, everywhere in Canada, it's, you can't discredit anybody. Winnipeg is crazy. Like, the musicians in Winnipeg, it's nuts. But in Vancouver, because it's small, you get opportunities to play in a lot of different circles, right? Like, you're less likely to get a massive opportunity, like touring in an arena pop show if you went to Nashville or LA or Toronto, but it's less that there are camps here. Like, I hear a lot about cities, and I've seen it myself in other cities, that it's like, this is your crew, and you don't play with those guys or those people.
Stay in your lane, bitch.
Stay in your lane. It's like, this is your crew. And then a singer, like, hey, we'll hire this crew, it's kind of, that's what happens in bigger markets usually. And also it's just for me, like, you know, if I lived in Nashville, I wouldn't be playing at all because there's real drummers there, but I wouldn't get the opportunity. It's just like, are you a country drummer or are you an R&B drummer or whatever? So on one hand, like if you took somebody that plays as regularly as I do in country in Nashville, they would for sure be much more experienced than I am in the genre. They would know it more because they've done it more. That's just the way that it works, right? Same with R&B music or my interpretation of gospel R&B music, because I didn't obviously grow up in a black gospel church. Like I grew up in Chilliwack. Like, but I frequently get hired to play music that has its roots in that. So I'm interpreting it as myself. I would never advertise myself as a gospel drummer.
Right.
Because I'm not. But in Vancouver, because it's so intertwined like that, you know, if there's somebody that's just difficult to work with or is disrespectful, they don't really last that long.
Yeah.
They're not treated, I don't think, really treated poorly in general, but it's like, you know, there's not...
The opportunities dry up.
The opportunities dry up pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that's how they dry up the most, is just people being flagrant or disrespectful or, you know, so...
Well, thank you for
buddy.
being here.
You're good at this.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So you're good at sitting there.
Yeah,
you're good at this too.
Am I?
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers, get up here.
Whatever, man. Mr. Rogers was a god.
He was. Yeah. Thank you all.
Yeah, I look forward to many more days, many more years.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's been a good run, and it's continuing to be a good run.
And I'll see you in a couple of days, probably.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
I'll probably email you tomorrow. Salute, buddy.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Salute.
Thank you.